Well, hello everyone and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Are you looking for resilience? Are you looking for the courage to go out and be yourself again? To find hope in this dark world? My guest today, Cathy Mendel, will be telling us how she's achieved that and how she believes anyone could go about and find their own courage and resilience. But before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about my guest, Cathy. Cathy is an accomplished speaker, author, and coach. Her motto is progress is possible, that resilience is necessary. She's been teaching about resilience, relationship, and purpose for over 20 years. Her ability to combine hard-earned wisdom with practicality, honest and memorable stories has sparked humor in her work. Cathy is committed to coaching and mentoring others, helping them to get unstuck, to make progress, and to develop relationships and mindsets that create capacity and releases potential. I'll be asking Cathy, who is also an author, about her books, Digging for a Diamond and Irrepressible, why she wrote that, and what message and learnings we can all learn from reading these books. I hope you enjoy this wonderful conversation and learn more from Cathy and her story, her personal story about how she's overcome pain and found her own joy. Meet my amazing guest, Cathy, a mother, wife, coach, author, speaker, as she shares her beautiful story and gives you that message of hope in her words. Meet Cathy. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Are you thinking about resilience? Are you thinking about how do you find courage in this troublesome world? Well, my guest today, as I said in the introduction, will be telling you just that. She's a writer, she's an author, and she's also a coach. And she's been doing this for many, many years. And what inspired me so much about her is this bit. She has had her hard-earned wisdom with practical, honest, and memorable stories. And hopefully I'll be trying to get her to share some of these stories with us. And another thing I like so much, and I think I'm gonna share with you guys, is that she'll be helping us to get unstuck, to make progress, and to develop relationship and mindset that create capacity and release potential. We all need that. Thank you so much, Cathy, for joining me today. I'm really honored that you took the time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are, but I'm so glad you said yes. How are you today?
I am all the better for being here with you. That introduction was amazing, but I just want to thank you for all the work you're doing to encourage people to get unstuck and to keep moving forwards as well. I find that very inspiring.
No, your work is really phenomenal. I'm truly honored that you are doing such a great work, especially in times like this, where you see what's happening in England, for example. Many people are stuck. Do I go back to work? Do I stay? I'm so comfortable. The furlough scheme has ended. So much is going on. And I think this is more than ever, we need you to help people who are saying, what do I do to move on? Before we get started in all of this, can you tell us a little bit about who are you and where are you joining me from?
Well, I agree with you about this season. I think we've all had to develop resilience, whether we plan to or not. Probably true about every season. And that's certainly been true for me in my life, different seasons, different learning. As you look in the rearview mirror at life, often we learn a lot. And I live near Southampton. And I'm married to Mark. I've got two girls in their 20s. And as you've already said, I write and I speak and I coach, and I'm often found at events and conferences, but also I think actually just sat with people who are going through different things, who are having to learn to be resilient, who've had to work out that plan A for their life may not have come to pass in the way that they were expecting. And so suddenly they're having to learn how to navigate plan B, sometimes plan C, and working out how actually to do that with with grace and with encouragement, rather than just feeling disappointed with some of the curveballs that life throws, because it really does.
Oh, absolutely. I think sometimes even myself, I look at my life and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is too much to bear. I need courage to keep going on, and we just have to find that. When you look at your work, what led you on this path? What in your background at the beginning that led you, that said to yourself, okay, I think more and more people need to hear these kind of words I have to share? What led you? How did you get on this path?
Well, I don't think I'm unusual in having had some curveballs thrown my way. I think maybe I'm just a bit unusual in the fact that I've verbalized it and I've been maybe a bit more vulnerable about it. And also, communication is my passion. So I was brought up in a home where there was quite a lot of trouble and, a lot of discord amongst my parents, and they split up quite a lot of times, and eventually they divorced when I was 15 or 16. And actually, I think they were probably trying to do the best they can. I don't hold that against them. This is what happens. Relationships are not always easy. But it was a difficult time for me, which led to a more difficult time for me when I went to university. And then I very quickly met my husband and married young. And then sadly, within the next couple of years, he was diagnosed with a condition that would mean that he would lose all of his eyesight. So suddenly I'm 21 years old and I'm married to a man who can't drive anymore and whose eyesight is failing. And so, we're still married 28 years later, but he has no eyesight now. And I feel like I've joined this tribe of people who've had to deal with chronic or long-term conditions or disabilities, or just disappointment, that the fairy tale didn't come to pass. And so I think just being honest about that and being passionate about communication, and actually just passionate about being real enough to help people to realize they're not alone. I think there's such a power in realizing we're not alone in facing disappointment, and it's okay to name it, but it's also okay to say there are things I can learn from it, there's strength I can gain from it, and there's strength we can gain from one another in it, which I think is really crucial.
Oh my goodness, what you just said about your husband, because I mean, so many people, especially during the pandemic, husbands lost their jobs and they weren't what they thought their husband would be. Or
Or the women has lost their job. I mean, either of us.
yeah, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying the husband, because a lot of some people are already, working from home and doing that, and they had this fairy tale. We women always have this fairy tale with our husband. We want him to be this path, this macho, and all of a sudden this happens. How did you, when you look back, because I'm asking this question just for other women or other in anyone who might be going through that difficult time at this stage. When this happened, how did you find it in yourself to overcome this pain? Because it's something you have to say in yourself, it doesn't matter. I will love you through thick and thin. I don't mind. I will love you. How did you do that?
Well, I'd like to create the image that I am Archangel Gabriel, who's always handled that beautifully, but that wouldn't be the case. There are days where it is really frustrating, and more so for him than for me, but for both of us. I think anyone who's a carer, or who has a husband or a parent or a child with any kinds of needs, that that's not just their thing, it shapes your life too. And I think for me, a really critical thing has been to be honest about the loss. It is a grief. And we have, any other grief, you would be allowed to go through that grief journey and to have days that are harder than others. And that's okay. That's part of the process. But also, I think the thing that really keeps me going is focusing on what I can do and not what I can't do, and focusing on what we can do and not just what we can't do. There's lots of things we can't do anymore, cinemas and theatres and restaurants, and lots of things that are hard for Mark because he can't see, but there are lots of things we can still do. I think it's very tempting in our world, especially with social media and everything, to look at the things that we wish we did have, that we would like to have. And so then we start to focus on what we don't have. But there is stuff we do have, there's stuff we can do. And if we can learn to really live in gratitude for those things and really to enjoy them and to lean into them, then suddenly, we are becoming more resilient. We are feeling more fulfilled. We're not just looking at our lack, we're actually looking at the strengths that we do still have. And that's very important, because he's still a very capable, competent man who does all kinds of wonderful stuff, jumps out of planes, has led a big community organization, there's, so he's not just his eyesight, and my life isn't just defined by that. It's huge. It is huge, but there's lots we still can do.
I love that, because I learned that with my own chronic illness as well, my sickle cell. I just had to, I used to be disappointed. I couldn't go, I couldn't go clubbing, I couldn't do things my sisters were doing. But one day I realized I could enjoy other things, and I started navigating towards the other things I could enjoy. And you saying this, I realized it's actually true. And we, with social media, is actually very hard, because you see so many people putting it out there. Well, during my time, there wasn't much social media. There was social media, not as much as there is today. And I sometimes say, I don't know how kids these days would deal with the pressure, because it's just too much. How do you sensitize this pressure that even though you can't do it, it's okay? And that leads me to my next question, because on your website, I would truly love, you're greeted by this phrase: progress is always possible, but resilience is always necessary. I'm like, okay, I get that, but I'm not quite sure what that means. Could you please explain in your words what exactly that means?
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that question. Building those resilience muscles, none of us likes going to the gym. None of us wants, we all want to be fit, but none of us want to do the training to be fit. And I think resilience in life is one of those things that actually the most resilient people I know are the people who've had to endure the most, because it's like they've been in training for years. And we pick up small weights to start with. We go through maybe a friendship struggle, or something small, and then sometimes you have to pick up a really big weight. Something happens that you are like, oh my gosh, this is heavy. But actually, as time goes on and we learn how to deal with the things that life throws with us, with support from others, and we learn some things along the way, and suddenly we realize that we've learned to lift up that weight, that other people look at us and go, I have no idea how you do that. But then we look at other people and go, well, I don't know how you lift your weight, but we haven't been in training for their weight. We've been in training for our weight. And if it helps anyone, the book that I wrote that was released last year is called Irrepressible, and it's 12 principles for a courageous, resilient, and fulfilling life. And it is those 12 things, little axioms, little memorable things, like filling your own tank, building your own tribe. So that's about friendships. It's about things like, when the horse is dead, dismount. That's my favorite one. So it's kind of like knowing when to let things go, when something's died, when a season of your life is over, being prepared to move on. So there's lots of different axioms in there, which for me have been my resilience training. They've been the things that I've had to learn along the way. These are the things that are going to help me to stay strong when honestly I've really needed it.
Oh, wow. As a coach, you mentor so many people. You've been doing this for 20 years, and you've been, you do it as such a passion. I've listened to most of your talk, and the way you talk about it, everyone. I think I woke up this morning. I started listening to one of them, and I thought, wow, this really makes sense, because you just don't tell us to do it. You give life example, like what you've just previously said about the weight. I would never look at it that way, that actually people's weight is different. You look at someone carrying that weight, not realizing they've had this weight preparation for many, many years. What are some of the key learners that you've been able to take on board when you navigate your coaching style to bring people to understand the message? Because one of the things we struggle today is that there's so many people out there who are coaching us and telling us this is how to do it, but there's not many people who are really putting that humor, that fun bit, that that helps you retain and keeps that memory in your mind that this is why this needs to be done.
Well, I think you're right. I think there are amazing coaches and inspirational leaders out there. But someone said to me years ago, if you want to impress someone, tell them about your success. But if you want to connect with someone, tell them about your struggles, like be vulnerable with them. And so I don't think there's anything wrong about talking about our successes and our achievements and the things that, you know, we really feel proud of. I think those are to be celebrated. But the truth is, I've learned that life is full of battles and blessings, and they are always like simultaneous. If you look on one side over here, there is great blessing and things you're really grateful for. But over here, there's these battles, and they're like these twin tracks that go on in our lives. They're simultaneously happening, battles and blessings. And somehow we have to learn to navigate and to live in the tension of those two things. So when I'm coaching someone, or when I'm mentoring, or just hanging out with a friend, you know, we're talking about how are we navigating those twin tracks of battles and blessings. Because now here's something interesting. You can be derailed by either of those tracks. You can be derailed by your success. You can get proud, you can get cocky, or you can get stuck in a rut thinking you're going to, if something's gone well, you're going to do it that way for the rest of your life. So you end up in a rut. So you can get derailed by your success, but often we get derailed by our struggles, by the disappointments, and by the battles. We just think we've failed, or we feel that we are not good enough, or that we're the only ones that experience these things. And so we end up losing momentum. And it's so important to understand those two things will always be together. And we need to find, you know, we need to find people to travel with. It's especially helpful if someone's been along those tracks before you, but even just good people, safe people, people who we can be honest with, who will give us that courage that we've been speaking about. I think that courage, encouragement, is just depositing courage. You encourage, you add courage. And we can discourage people, so we can take away courage, or we can encourage people. And it's amazing how easy it is just to give people courage for today, just to do the next right thing, to do the next right thing, to do the next right thing. And as we do that, suddenly the path opens up and we find we're further on than we thought we would be. But we need each other, don't we?
Absolutely, we need, because I think there's people that guide you for it, and learning from someone else's pathway helps you in a big way. Seeing someone else that has done that, and you're like, oh my goodness, this can actually be done. We definitely do. And my big question today was about how do you inspire others, because the question is all about people trying to get back to work. And what I want to get out of this conversation, I want people to take out who are stuck at home, who are so scared to go back to work because they're so used to this whole environment. I heard from a friend of mine, her daughter is suffering from anxiety and separation anxiety because she doesn't want to go to school. She was so used to the homeschooling and she didn't want to go back to school. One of the things you're very good at is that you help people to find our courage, to find ourselves again. Cathy, how would you say we could find our courage when times are so deep and things are it's so comfortable where we are, but we know we need to step outside. It's raining, but we know we need to step outside. How would you tell us to find our courage again?
Well, there are so many things, aren't there, that we need to hear in this season. And I think we need to be kind to ourselves. Sometimes I think we are kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. Sometimes we say things to ourselves that if anyone else said to us, we would be horrified. You know, we can really be negative. We can speak very negatively to ourselves about ourselves. And I do think at times when everything around us has been shaken, the most important thing to do is come back to our foundations, because they're the things we build on. And our foundations are knowing who we are, knowing what our values are, knowing that we are unique, that we actually have hidden strengths, that we have something to offer the world, that we are people of value, that we are people of worth, and coming back to those things and just building on those very important, deep foundations. All the external stuff, all the achievements and the accomplishments and this and that we hope to be doing, that may come and it may go. But if we can build on the deep foundations of knowing who we are, then suddenly just a brick at a time. You know, I said earlier on about just doing the next right thing. That's my top bit of advice to anyone, to my kids, as they're trying to think about making wise decisions as young adults, to anyone, is what is the next thing you need to do? What is the next right thing? The next conversation you need to have, the next bit of training you might need to have, or, just that next decision in your mind. And then the other bit of advice I always give to everyone, and myself especially, is just learn to fill your own tank. Because the reality is, if we have this resource tank in us of our energy and our creativity and our abilities, that there's a tap on the bottom of that tank that's always on, and it's running, always another day, another load of emails, another load of pressure, another difficult conversation, and that tank depletes. And sometimes, and this season has been one, I think, that tap is on full, like it's draining fast.
Yeah.
But there's no tank filling fairy that will come along and fill up your tank for you. Like, no one else is going to do it for you. So you have to know you, and you have to know what fills your tank. Is it a walk in the park? Is it a conversation with a friend? Is it reading a book? What is the thing that is going to make sure that you don't run dry? Because as we have to step out in courage, we need to make sure that we have the resources, both externally in friendships and support, which we've talked about, but also internally, that we're not on empty. And so just really beginning to think about what we can do to make sure that we're not kind of fluctuating too much, or that we've got some resources in the tank. Because resilience is all about adaptability. It's all about flexibility, and it's all about capacity. So we have to think, how much capacity do we have in us at the moment? How is your tank doing? How is your tank doing? And is there anything you can do just to fill it up a little bit to help you get through this next season?
Absolutely, I love it. It's so easy, because I think it's honestly, it's like a mother and a child. You think so much about your baby, and sometimes you forget about yourself. But I always remember, when you're in the plane, the first thing the airline will say, put your on air mask on before you
That's
put your babies
right.
on. And I said, why? I need to put the babies on first. And I had to think about, what was the logic behind this? Because if you're not well, if you're not breathing, if you're not safe, how would you save someone else? And that's has always stayed with me. I need
But
to
it's
be healthy.
counterintuitive, isn't it? You kind of think it's selfish somehow
Yes.
to
Yeah.
put that mask on yourself first, but it's not actually. Self-care is not self-indulgent. They're different. They're different things. But if we can just, look after ourselves so that we are able to love and care for others, that's not selfish then. I love that illustration. That's brilliant.
Yes, honestly, I always think about it, and I'm like, is that really what this truly means? Is just looking after yourself. You're an author, and you've written, I love this name of this book, Digging for Diamonds. We're digging for diamonds. And anyone who will read that would be wondering, what is this about? Because she's a coach, and she's writing Digging for Diamonds. Can you tell us how this book came about?
Yeah, Digging for Diamonds is like one of my babies, actually. So I mentioned my more recent book, Irrepressible. Well, that was kind of written to be used anywhere. People are using it in businesses, they're using it in entrepreneurs groups, in women's conferences, different places. But Digging for Diamonds was a more of a faith-based book. So I'm actually a Christian, and Digging for Diamonds has these 12 facets of how we find treasure in the messiness of life. But it also draws on sort of faith, what I believe God says about how he wants to transform us from being coal, dirty, messy coal, into these beautiful diamonds. And also how I believe that as people of faith, we should see the world like that it might look messy sometimes, but there's potential everywhere. There's potential in every person. There's potential in every situation, that transformation and hope are really, really important and possible. So Digging for Diamonds has got these 12 different facets about knowing value, knowing resilience, actually, because diamonds are just transformed under heat and pressure into what they are, but also that diamonds they shine out into the world. We're multifaceted people who actually kind of share the light in the world. So that's kind of like where diamonds came from. It's the same story in many ways as Irrepressible, but from a slightly more faith-based perspective.
Oh, so Irrepressible, this is the 12th principle for courageous, resilient, and fulfilling life. What was, anyone who's going out there, because this is quite a recent book you've just written, if someone wants to pick it up, what would be the citing points? Why would you recommend that book? I know you've said some key point, but why should an individual person pick that book, and where could they find this?
I'm going to wave it at you. There you go. It's nice
Yay!
and yellow.
Yes.
So you can get it anywhere on Amazon or wherever. I did not expect this book to come out at the start of a pandemic. Like it was a bad moment in a sense, from the shops shut and the festivals closed and all the places. But I cannot tell you, it's sold really well. It's been in Waterstones and Amazon and everywhere. And people have just been emailing me constantly saying, this book has been like a toolkit. These 12 principles have been like a toolkit to help me to just face the different challenges. And it's not just for people whose life is fallen apart. It's for all of us who want to live a fulfilling and courageous life, who want to grow stronger, and who really want to make a difference. There's a great principle in there about being a thermostat and not just a thermometer, because thermometers just tell you what the temperature is, but a thermostat sets the temperature. Like the whole atmosphere changes to what the thermostat sets. And my hope and desire is that people, whatever limitations they face and live with, because we all do,
Yes.
And whatever challenges and curveballs come their way, positive or negative, that actually we become people who set the temperature. We're people who set the temperature to hope. We're people who set the temperature to love and acceptance, and actually help other people do this thing called life. So this is, it's just a practical toolkit of some of the stuff I've not just learned myself, but I've learned from other people that I've walked this path with. And I just really hope it's encouraging to people. It's funny, there are moments, but it's also some of our story in there as well. Some of the way that we've had to navigate some of those junction points in our lives. So I hope it's an encouragement.
I think it is. I will definitely be getting my own copy because I want to. I think every day is a school day for me, and I tell people the reason I go. People have to go to school to learn, but sometimes I just learn in the real world. I learn from my conversation, and this will be one of the tools I'll be using to learn. Our final question, because I've really enjoyed talking to you, learning all the different things. You talk about inspiration to succeed, and a lot of people are struggling to find that inspiration to succeed, to be who they are, to understand that, to navigate, and navigate their own journey. So people are forced to comfort pain, especially during a challenging time like this. People are forced to comfort different kinds of pain. What would be your message of hope to people out there? Especially what I love about your message, especially Digging for Gold, you talk about the faith bits. And this new book is to give us 12 principles for resilience, which is something keyword that people, what will be your hope in setting the agenda for 2022?
Well, I think I always say to people, and this would be true whether you have got a faith or not, but God hasn't brought you this far to only bring you this far. Life hasn't brought you this far to only bring you this far. And actually, our life isn't done yet. And everything that we've been through this last couple of years some of it's been really, really difficult, but it won't be wasted. We've learned some really important things, I think, about what we value the most and who we value the most. And my challenge for me personally is not to lose that learning as we just almost default back to busyness and running around. Is actually, let's not lose the precious treasures that we have discovered this last couple of years, whether that's enjoying nature, how much our family and friends mean to us, those things, but also just to believe that there is more to come, and that there's a future of hope ahead of us. And it might not always look as we planned it to be, but actually, as we do the next right thing, as we get real with those foundations, the things that we really care about, that we can actually, the government are talking about building back better. Well, that might be true politically, but wouldn't it be great if it could be true personally? That we could build back better, that we could actually decide that what we're building is something of worth and of value, and that we can make a difference around us. And we've never needed it more. Like, our communities have never needed it more. The people who live next to us need encouragement. And so I would just think, just really just hope that we can all just grab this opportunity to make our country, our neighborhoods, and our families stronger, by saying it takes all of us. It really takes all of us to build resilience in our communities and in our nation. It's so easy to throw stones. It's so easy to see the things that need improving, but it takes not just problem spotters, but problem solvers to be people who actually like, we can make a difference together. And so I really believe this is a time for us to do that and to think strategically and positively and to see the best in one another. We've all got stuff to offer.
Yeah, I love that. Building back better, and not just for the political side, but also building ourselves back better. And I just saw it, and I saw it on the political side. And to be fair with you, I didn't really understand what that meant. Until now we've had this conversation, I actually understand building back what we've left behind, that we're building ourselves back to be better. And I think there can't be a better way to end this conversation. I really appreciate this talk. Thank you so much, Cathy, for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.